Hello and welcome to The Master's Voice, the podcast series on Mediabrief.com. This is MVP, that is The Master's Voice, and I am joined by a distinguished guest, a remarkable visionary leader who brings as much of brilliant, varied work experience as she does extra work passions. Please join me in welcoming Pallavi Shrivastava, co-founder and director, ProgCap. Pallavi, welcome to MVP, The Master's Voice podcast on Mediabrief.com.
Thank you, Pavan, for having me here.
I'm very, very grateful. On MVP, the Master's Voice podcast, I invite the most valuable professionals in their space. MVP, as you know, is most valuable player in sports internationally. And we truly have a distinguished MVP today. So thank you for your time, Pallavi. And thanks also to Banali Banerjee of AdFactors PR and Anuradha Goyal of ProgCap for having made this interaction possible. So Pallavi, without further ado, please allow me to introduce you to anyone who might just not be aware of the great experience and enormous value you bring not only to your work table, your entity, but also to enterprise and corporate India. So by your leave, Pallavi, here goes. Pallavi is co-founder and director of ProgCap, one of the largest providers of last-mile financing solutions in India. At ProgCap, Pallavi's overarching vision is to position the brand as India's leading full-stack digital bank for retailers that will revolutionize the path of financial access and empower the millions of small and medium enterprises to progress without any financial obstacles. Under Pallavi's vision, ProgCap has already scaled massively since its launch to more than 60 corporates, 500,000 retailers on the platform, and disbursed more than 3,500 crore Indian rupees of loans on the back of its unique supply chain-driven business model and its award-winning risk scoring engine. Pallavi is included amongst the top 50 social innovators globally. Along with the iconic Women Leadership Award, Pallavi has won several accolades for her work in the past. After completing engineering and MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur, Pallavi joined the Hinduja Group, where she was part of the prestigious Hinduja Leadership Program that gave her an opportunity to work in cross-functional leadership roles across group companies. Before starting ProgCap, Pallavi worked with the World Bank and IFC, International Finance Corporation, where she led IFC's last-mile focused investments in South Asia and their scale-up in other emerging markets in Asia and Africa. Born in UP and raised across 9 different states, Pallavi is at present settled in Delhi with her family. Her father is a retired banker and her mother an erstwhile teacher and a homemaker. A learning addict, Pallavi is constantly pursuing multiple passions to enhance herself on the professional and the personal levels. Pallavi is a certified yoga instructor, a ukulele player, an avid trekker, and has completed a 22-day trek to the Mount Everest base camp. And wait, she also has an advanced diploma avanzado, I hope I said that correctly, in the Spanish language. In her limited free time, she still has some free time. Talk about amazing work management. But in her limited free time, Pallavi also enjoys reading, journaling, and jamming with her 5-year-old daughter. Absolutely wonderful. So that's Pallavi Shrivastava, co-founder and director, ProgCap. Pallavi, once again, welcome to the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com.
Thanks a lot, Pavan and Mediabrief, for having me on this show. It's truly an honor. Thank you.
We too are honored, Pallavi. Let's take it away. Pallavi, as of today, what is the current state of credit lending for SMEs and MSMEs in the country?
So if you look at the SME credit market today, right, it's still less than 10% of the consumer lending market, which is where we have seen that the consumers, because of the availability of data and better ways to underwrite these customers, there has been huge focus on consumer lending. But when we look at SMEs, there has been a massive credit gap, right? 99% of MSMEs in India are micro enterprises. There is a $14.5 trillion of credit gap. Wow. But over the last 5 years, we are seeing that due to few interventions by the government, as well as a huge focus by the fintech, and the digital lending ecosystem, there has been a lot of focus as well as push towards making sure that the SMEs are financially included, right? So some of the things that really helped in ensuring that we could reach out to the underserved MSMEs. We work on the retailer financing side. So corporates sell the goods to distributors sell to retailers. And there has been an informal kind of a credit economy working here. But, when we saw that the GST came in, for example, data started getting formalized, right? Demon led to formalizing the cash to some extent. UPI that came in, which allowed the customers to start doing low cost and ease of transactions, which also now became free. So all of these interventions really gave a huge credit push to the SME financing ecosystem. And more we are seeing that, with the recent budget talking a lot about digitization, with the government focus and now the banking industry looking at SMEs and MSMEs and going on this segment, right? So with a lot of focus from the government, fintech ecosystem, and with more and more digitization happening in the ecosystem with the current budget that's been, a lot of intervention that have been announced. I think this gap is going to narrow further. But we still kind of, if we put all the fintechs together, we have hardly scratched the surface for the massive gap still. And specifically, the 99% of micro enterprises, there is still a lot to be done to ensure that they are getting better financial inclusion and are getting access to finance in the way we would like them to be.
Excellent. That's really a very nice walkthrough and sets, I think, the whole tenor of where we are and what is the opportunity. And I think kudos to you for seeing this amazing opportunity, not just to make value for your own enterprise, but also to add a lot of value into the nation building work that everybody really has to pull up their socks up and do, now that we are trying to get out of and emerge from the wake of the pandemic. So Pallavi, tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what sparked the idea of starting a platform like ProgCap. I think my previous remark actually has half the answer, but in short, I really would like to hear it from you.
Sure, Pavan. So, like you said already, I was working with the Hinduja group as part of the Hinduja leadership program. That's my career post my MBA. And if I look at my roles there, it was all with the manufacturing giants with Ashok Leyland and Gulf Oil. And after I finished 2.5-3 years of stint there, I was working across multiple roles in marketing, finance. And I really wanted to do something. So I think the spark was always there to do something of your own. I had a vague idea about what it would be like, but I really wanted to make it happen in the field of finance and ensure that, I'm able to add value given my background and experience. So everything I did from there on, I left my job. I started working, in consulting roles, working with social enterprises, microfinance institutions. I was extremely fascinated by what microfinance had achieved for individual borrowers who were erstwhile completely marginalized and did not have access to credit. Certain, convoluted set of events brought me to IFC, which is a private sector arm of World Bank Group. And there I got an opportunity to work very closely, with this challenge of MSME financing and saw this up close, not only in India, but also in other countries in South Asia and Africa where I was working. And so, I realized that actually nobody is solving this issue. While, IFC had then identified a huge credit gap, and there have been enough publications, but nobody was really looking at MSMEs. And especially if I talk about trading MSMEs where we work, they were completely ignored. So I decided to take the plunge myself. I was joined by my co-founder who was leading the supply chain finance at Standard Chartered Bank. And we started exploring ways to reach out to these last mile retailers using corporate linkages. And we spent a lot of time in the market, met with a lot of corporates, met with customers on the ground and could figure out a product, see that what the real challenges was. The real challenge was not only related to absence of credit, but also just the comfort these customers ended up having with informal sources of credit that came at a high social and economic cost. So, the product that we arrived at and, we started pitching it and it seemed like there is something which we could really contribute and make this financial inclusion happen. And that's what led to the start of this. Today, we are proud to say that we are the largest player in pure play retailer financing in India.
So amazing. What really is remarkable is how you went about. I think you probably had that inkling to do what you are doing, and you are a very socially responsible kind of a person, if I may editorialize here. and how you invested all your time and everything, gave up a great job at a wonderful institution like the Hindujas and learned from them, and then came out, and really today you are empowering society. So across these 3.5 years that ProgCap has been around, what is your initial early days report card, if I may put it like that?
We started giving out our first loan somewhere around mid of 2018. That's when we raised our first seed round from ROEX Ventures. And from there on, I think the idea for us was very clear that we wanted to simplify and find a way to be able to reach out to the millions of MSMEs and help them not only with credit, but also with formalizing and digitizing their supply chains. And we're proud to say that we ended up creating a platform where on one side you have the India Inc., where you have the corporates, distributors and retailers and the entire ecosystem that comes on the platform. The data that we get from by onboarding these customers allows us to really take an informed call, even in the absence of bureau data, which is not available for these customers. On the other side, we work with partners like large banks who provide their balance sheets and supply to facilitate credit. And we're proud to say that, we are today the largest player in pure play retailer financing in India.
Wonderful, wonderful. What is the kind of impact you've had on reducing the terribly high opportunity cost just because people were, small-time borrowers or the humble borrowers were more comfortable with the disorganized sector? So what have you helped correct, and what is your long-term goal across?
So, Pavan, our long-term goal continues to be to solve the problems that MSMEs today face. And as we got into more, credit side, we started seeing that there's a massive need not only for credit and access to finance, but also for other banking products, right? So while, our credit product helps in bringing in formalization in this, in the ecosystem via our app and payment gateway and a lot of other capacity building that we do for MSMEs. But still a lot of transactions happen on paper. So currently we are, while only working in credit and slowly offering payment solutions, the idea is really to solve end-to-end supply chain transactions issues for these customers. And because of our unique wedge with the corporate partnerships, we believe that we are very well positioned to do this at scale. If I talk about impact, we hear a lot of stories, where now the brands, especially post-pandemic, have shared insights with us where we are seeing that customers who were with ProgCap versus customers who did not have ProgCap facility showed a 30% difference in the growth. So customers who were already with ProgCap had a growth of 30% despite the slowdown in economy. We get a lot of pictures and emails coming from our customers showcasing that how ProgCap credit has helped them while the informal credit sources had pulled back during the COVID. By virtue of giving credit, we're also kind of seeing our important role being played in helping out the retailers in enhancing their margins, which is currently the biggest pain point from them. So it's not only related to access to finance, but also how they're growing in a more formal and a structured way, able to increase their profitability and margins along with that growth.
Excellent. In fact, in my backgrounder that I read about ProgCap, I did mention 3,500 crores. I did mention more than 500,000 retailers and more than 60 odd corporate partnerships. What kind of corporate partnerships do you have in brief, if you could tell me, please?
Sure, Pavan. So we work with large corporates in India. So let us say in any industry that we work with, if we are in, let us say, bicycle industry, right? So we will work with the largest players who are selling bicycles, in the apparel industry, shoes, so any industry that we look at, if we talk about FMCG, then it will be Hindustan Unilever and, so similar such brands. So the industry that are focused in, we work with the top players and onboard their entire supply chain through those corporate partnerships.
That's really nice, Pallavi. Any case study, any example that comes to mind which sort of pleases you, satisfies your inner basic urge of wanting to do good, of wanting to help? So a before and an after with any example, however small, however big. wherever?
So like I said, the brands that we work with, they share a lot of case studies with us, and we constantly see the impact of ProgCap credit. So one of the things that we noticed, the data that we look at industry-wise to do our impact analysis, we saw that the customers who were with ProgCap versus who weren't, the brands have reported that they have shown a 30% increase in their, the growth compared to the customers who were not having ProgCap facility post-pandemic. Apart from that, if I look at from the retailer's perspective, we do get a lot of insights and case studies and pictures from them where they have now moved on to a bigger shops, and when informal credit pulled back, they had ProgCap lines, and we've seen that post-pandemic, the demand has massively gone up, and we are seeing the impact of our work in these businesses more and more, especially because the product is also sort of flexible and customized credit, so it helps the customers. It helps with getting them the credit at the time they need and at the terms that they want. Flexibility of access as well as flexibility in repayments is something that has been a great benefit for our customers.
Excellent. Pallavi, salute really, because what you are doing is truly energizing, the greatest common denominator in terms of spread, in terms of reach, in terms of the impact that it actually is having, not only on the individuals who constitute the space, but also everybody else that they serve. And ultimately, it totals up amazingly for the nation. So really wonderful, great, more strength to you. Let's step back, fly up into the clouds and give me an overview. What do you see? How do you think the BFSI sector has evolved in India?
If we look at the last 3 to 4 decades, we've been only hearing the same banks, the banking ecosystem. They've been players. There haven't been much disruption, beyond, let us say, after liberalization, and we haven't seen much changes happening in the banking ecosystem. There were movements around centralized banking system, but if you look at the players have been constant, right? But if we just look at the last 5 years, there has been a complete transformation, right? Today, there's been a study by BCG which talks about that 30% of all new credit acquisition is happening via fintechs. So we are hearing a lot of new names, and that's on the credit side. We know the payment success story. There've been enough and more players coming up there. I believe that, by end of this decade, I think 20 to 25% of the market cap in BFSI sector is going to be contributed by the fintechs. That's only going to increase, and we will hear a lot more new players coming in, and that's going to be really revolutionizing the way we look at fintechs and, of course, digital first journey compared to what.
Which brings me to my next question, Pallavi. But that was a really nice summation and very inspiring and extremely encouraging actually for everybody. And like you said, you as not the challenger, but as the category defining brand and service, you look at it more like a service than a brand, which is amazing. You're all agog, bring it on is what you seem to be telling me in terms of the opportunity, in terms of whatever competition. But that's great. According to you, you mentioned digitization, and that brought me to my next question. What role is digitization playing in revolutionizing the fintech industry in India? I know how it's been growing, but if you can give me the expert's bird's eye view on that.
So digitization has every role to play, right? In the absence of digitization, we could not have been doing what we are doing, at least, right? So,
right.
We can say how many of us really walk into a bank branch, right? It's been
I haven't gone for the last 2 years.
Right. So mobile banking has completely transformed the way we bank. And I think there is more trust. Earlier, I would also think that before Demon happened, right, I wasn't using payment wallet much, but we all started getting comfortable with it, right? All the e-commerce transactions that we do now. So a lot of focus, and I think by the government also. So I think demonetization, GST, UID, AEPS, right? The UPI transactions, as per some statistics, more than 34% of transactions that are happening today digitally are UPI, right? And we have some of the world's best open APIs there and, best infrastructure. And I think with the recent push that's happening, in the recent budget that's been announced with digital currency and, digitized banking, the 75 or digital banks that are going to be set up, post offices getting converted, 1.5 lakhs post offices getting integrated into, the digital hubs. All of this is really revolutionary, and one can only imagine what's going to happen in the coming years. So as a lending player, it all helps us to boost the credit underwriting models. It helps us to make more informed and better credit decisions on the customers, monitor the end use, and ensure that we are able to reach out to the last mile underserved customers who could not have imagined getting credit in the absence of a branch-based infrastructure earlier.
Absolutely. Pallavi, what do you think that the government can do to support digital lending startups like yours?
So, government is already doing a lot. I've been talking about all these infrastructure changes that the government has been putting up, which has really helped us, right? So, just looking at the recent changes where we'll have the Udyam, Aadhaar, eShram, NPCS all linked together, single registration, a lot of these, initiatives with digital currency coming up. This is all taking us towards a transformative leap. I think what government can do more and help out more with is, the lending through digital is still very nascent, right? So while payments has taken a huge leap forward, lending is still far behind. And because of, I think, a lot of things which are still not fully digitized, some part of KYC, or if you want to do a high ticket loan, then naturally there is an in-person involvement. So regulations are coming in, for fintechs, and that's something which is going to, enhance the proposition that lending fintechs will give. I think, the banks erstwhile enjoyed a lot of trust from customers, right? So when you are actually taking money, there's still, it's okay not to know who's giving out the money, right? But there is still lack of trust when you want to deposit money with someone, right? So I think some push there where we are seeing more regulated entities, not only with large banks, but also fintechs who are coming forward, have demonstrated robust lending models, are meeting the compliance norms. And with the regulations, I think supporting them to do better in terms of KYC, creating an enabling infrastructure for banks and fintechs to partner and grow together. I think some of these interventions and more focused interventions here would really help the fintech lending ecosystem, as well as the large banks who are looking to reach out to these segments which were erstwhile not possible to reach them.
Absolutely. So Pallavi, you've really spelt it out nicely. You've laid out the ground and given us a really nice bird's eye view, and also the bird's eye view of somebody who's deep inside the space and who's actually helped create this and really empower this category of lending. So what is your future outlook on India's fintech sector in terms of any numbers, where we are and where we should or are likely to or can go, whichever number you want to give me?
Sure. I think, we look at payments, neobanks, lending, insurance, stock broking. Fintechs are completely changing the way, across each of these areas, and more continues to happen. 2021 was a fantastic year. We saw some collaborations happening, acquisitions happening by fintech companies, which has been fantastic. As per some statistics, there was over $9 billion of funding that went into the fintech ecosystem. I think 2022, we can expect more regulations in digital lending and in neobanking. I think the regulators are looking at fintechs. There is recognition of the fact that they are definitely making a dent in the GDP and the economy. And I think with more regulation coming in, I see that there are 4 pillars that are going to be critical for anyone looking at the next year and beyond, which is, I think, credit quality, which is going to be paramount. So ensuring that we are able to underwrite with better quality, better efficiencies, in data. Second is collection efficiency, right? So while in lending business, it's easy to give out money, but when it comes to collections, that's where we need to get better. We need to ensure that we have better quality monitoring and systems to become more efficient on that. Then I think third pillar for me personally, and I think which is where the fintech as a community do far better, is the customer experience per se, right? So how do we're all kind of, focusing on customer first approaches, where we are saying that, okay, customers should not come to us. We should make things as seamless and as easy for them to access easy credit. And so that's going to really continue, and customers are going to see better options for themselves. And finally, I think with regulations coming in, more focus on compliances will be needed. Beyond that, I also see that next few years are going to be a lot about consolidations and, because of many players that are coming in. So the future looks very, very bright, and we are very excited about what fintech ecosystem and the digital lending companies can really offer. And there is a lot of work to be done, so that all keeps us excited. We've barely scratched the surface. There is enough and more market to be solved for. And I think with the right approaches, right structures, anyone with robust business models and good credit quality will surely be coming out as a winner here.
Right, Pallavi. Thank you so much. That was really a very nice, very interesting, very insightful conversation on the entire space and the business and the category that you have been developing and growing of lending. So let's talk about the fact that while your corporates will give you a ready-made massive network of, their retailers whom you can really help grow with your lending, what about reaching individual retailers, the smaller ones who probably are not married to some corporate in terms of being tied exclusively to them, who might be running some shop, some store, something or the other, whatever they do? So how do you reach out to your target groups? One is the corporates and the other are the lenders.
Right. No, very good question, Pavan. And I think that's where the limitation of the model comes, that if an individual retailer walks into us and wants to avail credit, and we don't have the partnership with the brand that he's holding, then perhaps we can't lend to them directly. But what that is leading to is that, if we look at the 30 million odd retailers in India, you go to any shop, even in the most rural, remote regions, you will find that they are keeping some branded product, right? So when we wanted to address this challenge and really go retailer by retailer, either we set up branch infrastructure or, find a way to sit in the shop, and while they're doing all the paperwork, we find a way to digitize it. The other was that, we wanted to see how we can use our expertise and experience to find aggregators through which we could help them, but at the same time, find alternative ways to gather data around them. And easiest way is that, they had two things. One is the brand. So they're keeping some kind of a branded product that becomes a hook. And the second is that they all have a smartphone today. So those two things became the mode of acquiring the customers and also the mode of delivery. So we started working with the brands. Once we onboarded a customer with a brand, most of the retailers are multi-branded. So, we are having access to a high quality rich data. The underwriting happens onto a platform. And now what we are seeing more and more is that we are getting a lot of inbound requests, right? So initially going and pitching to a brand was very different from what's happening today, where if a retailer wants to avail credit, we are also seeing some network effects kicking in, where we have many times gone bottom up and partnered with those brands where we see that there is a huge demand in those segments. So that's been our model for business development and acquiring the brands. On the banking partner side, we are perhaps the only player which has been able to scale to this level on the back completely with a marketplace model. And the reason is that, we are as sort of, the way we have set up the platform, it allows for seamless integrations with the systems that, our banks have. At the same time, the segment that we are reaching and the way we work with them, the structures that we have are something that are aligned with the interests of the banks. So while partnering with banks has not been a challenge in terms of what value proposition we bring for them or what value addition they do to us, it's more around how to really do it at scale, because you want to give a uniform customer experience, but at the back end you have different types of banking partners, from large NBFCs to banks and small finance banks. So that's the bigger challenge. So by virtue of our platforms and the tech first approach, it's been a difficult journey to navigate, but we've been able to do it to a certain degree of efficiencies kicking in now. So that's how we approach these partnerships.
Excellent. Let's talk about on the personal front. Okay, you have these amazing achievements and, people have a hobby here, a hobby there. But your hobby, my God, it has you doing a 22-day trek at the Mount Everest base camp. Then you are a certified expert in the Spanish language. You play the ukulele. You do so many things. So what is the value that you feel having any passion? Let's say one passion. Somebody might play some instrument, somebody might paint, somebody might do something else, but doing it with passion और उसको बिल्कुल जिसको कहते हैं ना शिद्दत के साथ करना. What does that give you in terms of, your evolution as a person, your development as a human being, and also as a professional?
A lot. I attribute everything that I do at work to a lot of these, side activities that I do. This thing called as, the power of creative cross training, which I think is been at play. And it's just that I always like to do a lot of things and learn a lot of things, keep adding them to my kitty. It keeps me excited. It gives me a lot of calm and helps me to grow as an individual beyond what I do. So, you have a left side brain and a right side brain. Those are both sides equally working, then wonderful, right? And you're able to operate, and I work long hours. I'm able to do it because I wake up very early in the morning at 5 a.m. irrespective of when I sleep, and I have a yoga practice. I really wanted to contribute and teach yoga, so I did yoga teachers training not once but twice, different institutions, and I'm a certified yoga teacher. And these are all things which have helped me grow. And what happens with me is that I get into it and I get so passionate and excited about learning. So ukulele is something which I picked up during lockdown, the first lockdown, and in just like 30 minutes a day. Even if now I come back and I strum for 15-20 minutes, it just kind of picks you up, and you in music yourself, I'm sure you understand it.
Music detoxifies you actually.
So I think it's more that. Trek is something I did long back. I don't do it anymore, Pavan. This was a college group when after graduation you all go for a 25-30 day kind of expedition, and this was a part of that. These two things have stuck with me and I continue.
Amazing. So somebody comes to you for a job, HR sends someone to you. What do you look for? Because obviously if HR has sent somebody to you, then that person is absolutely fine in terms of the requisite qualifications, experience, yes, no, fresher, whatever. What do you look for in any person who wants to come and work with you? Could be qualities, could be attitude, could be skill sets, could be whatever.
Two things for me that really matter, and I always keep looking out for that. One is passion, and when I say passion, I really mean conviction in what we are doing, right? So the question is always that why do you want to join ProgCap, right? Not only a fintech company, but so it shows that they've done their homework, they really are wanting to do, and they believe in the mission. Many times I've seen that after a few conversations, perhaps they don't believe in the mission, but they just want to be a part of this exciting fintech growth journey. But after a few conversations, they start seeing that how perhaps what we are doing aligns with what they would like to do in future, right? So whether someone's few years, to a very long-term career at ProgCap, our focus as a company has been that every day that you walk out at the end of the day from office, do you see yourself growing as a person, right? Not only professionally, but personally. And a lot of people ask me, what's the culture at ProgCap? And I always say, perhaps we don't promise fun, but we promise a lot of growth and learning. And the day you feel like I'm not growing as an individual or as a professional, perhaps that's the day we should talk. So the hunger to learn and a conviction and passion to really be a part of this journey and create something. And we make sure then, all the freedom and opportunity is there, because then the responsibility comes back at you to ensure that that promise has been delivered to them. So that's how we look at candidates when we hire them.
Wonderful, Pallavi. It was truly very insightful, very, very interesting. Thank you for all the time. And I think this conversation with you on MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on Mediabrief.com was really rewarding. And I'm sure everybody else will find it the same and will agree with me when I say that. I enjoyed my conversation. What about you, Pallavi?
I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you so much for bringing out those varied perspectives, and great to have this conversation with you, Pavan. You're wonderful, and thank you so much for having me here. Thanks to you as well as Master Voice Podcast and Mediabrief. Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're very kind, very, very kind. More strength to you, Pallavi. What you're doing truly is a mission, and you're doing it as someone who is completely emotionally and in every other which way invested in society and the nation. So A salute to you once again.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
The amazing Pallavi Shrivastava, co-founder and director of ProgCap, was my distinguished guest on this episode of The Master's Voice, the podcast series on Mediabrief.com. I found this conversation very, very insightful indeed, and I'm sure it will be exactly similarly received by any other professional who's listening to this episode. Very insightful, very rewarding. Till we meet again in the next episode of the Master's Voice podcast on Mediabrief.com, this is your host and friend Pavan Chawla saying, stay positive, but test negative. Bye-bye.